what happened. What did he say? She was like, oh, he just said, don't ever hook me up with a black girl again because black girls are ghetto.
What?
I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging on myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you.
Hey everyone, my name is Keishante Chantel and welcome to my channel. So we are doing just basically a story time today. I know that I want to be a little bit more open about my experiences, not just as a content creator, but as a human being. So I have a story time to tell you guys, and it's actually a really funny story. It is about a time that I got set up on a blind date and the guy turned out to be a racist. Trust me, I am just as I gasped when I first met him. So it's probably the same exact gasp that you just gave. So before we jump into this story time, if you are new here, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you have been here before, welcome back. You guys, do not forget to like the video and engage with the content, as it does help me get into the algorithm and it helps my channel to grow. So we're gonna jump straight into this video. So we'll start off. This was during the time that I worked at Ulta Beauty, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I have had phases with the guys that I like to date, or my interests, my preferences, shall I say. My preferences have definitely changed throughout the years, but this was during a time where I really wanted to explore my options, because I have only dated black guys and that's just what I was attracted to. Like, there's no hidden agenda, no reason. That's just what I was attracted to, but I wanted to try to expand my options just because I have been single for a very long time and I'm okay with that. But you know, now I'm getting to a point where I want to spend time with someone. And so this was during a time where I had just gotten out of a relationship and I wanted to explore my options. So there was a girl that I worked with, and she was like Native American and white. And so I was just like, well, and she and we got along really well. And I told her that I wanted to date outside my race and if she had any friends, and she was just a really cool person. So I figured she would probably know a guy or two, just because she hung out mostly with guys. So she was like, I have a friend, we're just going to call him Ted. That is not his name, but we're just gonna call him Ted just because we don't want to offend. We're just gonna call him Ted. And so she was just like, I'll hook you up with so-and-so. So everybody, even though people call me Keishante, which is of course my government name, family and friends typically call me Sean. And Sean is not, I mean, it is a common name, but it's mostly common for like boys. So a name is a name, it is what it is. So my friend at the time, she was just like, okay, so I'm gonna hook you up with this guy that I know. And I was like, okay, cool. So I don't know why I should have investigated a little bit more into their preferences, but I figured she was going to tell him that I was black, just, you know, just in case. So we basically exchange numbers and we text. And so most of the people who I associate with, they know I like anime, they know I like Marvel. I've just always been a tomboy at heart, so those types of things are very natural, and it's very easy for me to connect with guys because of course we'll share some of the same common interests. So I got Ted's number and we text, kind of introduce ourselves through text, and I'm like, hey, how are you? And this wasn't, I want to say this was during a time where I was like Team Galaxy and I just didn't have an iPhone, so it wasn't like I could FaceTime him to see what he looked like. That was never a thought. It was just texting. And so we text for about 2 weeks, just general conversation, getting to know each other. He worked in loss prevention, and so we would talk about like the shoplifters and things like that, and I would tell him about like Ulta and how like the theft was just crazy. And so we were connecting on different levels just through text message, and especially through Marvel, because I love Marvel. I read all the comic books just like I love, you know, anime, and I read the manga and stuff. What ended up happening was he invited me out on a date. And so I remember telling my friend, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, girl. And I was also like, you know, I'm nervous too, because what if, just what if, you know, he doesn't like me? And it was never a thought in my mind that it would be anything in terms of race, but it was just like, you know, what if he just doesn't like my personality? You know, girls are going to second guess themselves. Whether you're the most drop dead beautiful woman in the world, you're always going to have just a slight little bit of insecurity. So I remember I was so excited. We had decided to go see the movie Godzilla when it came out. So I was just like really excited because, you know, I also love dinosaurs, and he knew that. So we're texting and he's like, oh, we can go get something to eat after we leave the movies. So I was like, cool. So I didn't really like dress up or anything, because I'm a firm believer, like, when you go on a first date, typically the movies is not the place that you should go, just because you want to be able to talk to that person like on a personal level, just kind of get to know them, and you can't necessarily do that while you're watching a movie. So he gets to the movie theater before I do, and I am texting him like I'm about to walk in and everything, because he didn't pick me up. I didn't want him to know where I lived. I'm very like particular about that. I was just like, we can meet there. So he texted me, let me know that he was there. So he had already purchased the tickets and everything, and I am walking in and he's like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I am parking, about to walk in. So as I am walking through the door, and I'm just like texting him again, I'm like, hey, I don't see you. So then when I walked in, I walked past this guy who was leaning up against the wall with his arms folded. So I had seen a picture of him before, but it was like a very blurry picture. Nothing updated to where I could just be like, oh, that's him, if I just so happened to see him. So I called him because I was just like, hey, I don't see you. And he was like, I'm in the hallway. So then I circled back around and walked in the hallway, and as soon as he was like the only one in the hallway, so it was very easy to spot him. So when I saw him, I was like, hey, are you Ted? And he was just like, yeah, who are you? And I was like, I'm Sean. But after he had already made the face, I was just kind of like very uncomfortable, and I should have turned around and kept it moving, because that was a clear indication of how my night was gonna go. I just was like, hey, how are you? And he was just like, I'm good. But he was like, the color, he's already white, so the color just seemed like it drained from his face even more. So then directly afterwards, he's just like, well, I was just like, hey, so are you excited about the movie? And he was like, oh, yeah, a little bit. So I was like, okay, well, we can just go ahead and go in. So we went in and we sat down. And so I remember asking him about like a Marvel movie that was getting ready to come out at the time. I was just like, hey, are you going to see so-and-so? And he was like, oh, I don't know yet. I'll have to see. So it's just the conversation just was not there. He just shut down. He didn't want to talk, didn't want to be bothered. And so I was just kind of like, well, I don't know what was in my mind, but I wanted him to see that I was a cool person. Because at the time I was just like, well, maybe he just didn't find me attractive. I didn't think that it would have anything to do with race. So, you know, and again, going to the movies, you can't really talk to someone and get to know them at the movies. But I just feel like because he had instantly shut down, it was just like very hard to communicate with him. So then the credits, and this was, I was trying to communicate with him before the credits even started. So, I asked him, you know, did he want popcorn? And it's really shitty because I was the one that was trying to soothe things over. I was like, hey, do you want popcorn? Do you want a drink? And he's like, nope, I'm good. And I was just like, okay. So then flash forward, we watched a movie. The movie's over. Mind you, we were still supposed to go grab food. So I was just like, well, I know you didn't get popcorn or anything. Did you still want to grab something to eat? And he was like, oh, no, I think I'm just going to go ahead and head home. So I was just like, okay, all right. Well, it was nice to meet you. And I was like, did you want to maybe hang out again? And he was just like, I don't know, probably not.
Bitch, bet, motherfucker, bet, nigga, bet it, bitch, bet.
And I was just like, okay. So that was all on me, because even though I was trying to be nice, I look back on it and honestly it seemed a little desperate. But it's just, that's the type of world that we live in. And it's not that I was being desperate, even though it feels that way. That's not what it was. But I was just too naive and too nice. I was too nice. Because when he made the face in the beginning, I should have got the fuck on through. I should have got on through and kept it moving, kept conversation, and just deaded it. I should have deaded it. And I didn't. And that's on me. But you live and you learn. How did I end up finding out? Because, you know, you don't want to just call somebody racist and they just have a preference. So I hit my friend up and I told her about the date. And I remember I texted her and I was like, girl. And she was like, oh my gosh, how did it go? And I texted her again, girl, with like a mad emoji. So then she called me and she was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, he was not feeling me. This is how it went. This is how he acted. And she was just like, oh my gosh, you guys had been texting for a couple weeks and things seem to be going really good. I said, did you at any point in time tell him that I was black? She was like, no.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
And I was like, and why not? And she was like, well, because I didn't really think that that was important. Kudos to her, because it should never be important. But in the type of world that we live in, it is very important because people have preferences, people can be racist. So then after I just explained everything to her, she was like, well, that's kind of shitty. I hate that you had that experience, but I'm going to hit him up and I'm going to find out like what's really wrong. So she called me back like maybe the next day, and she was like, girl, I'm so sorry, he's a piece of shit and blah blah blah. And I was like, what happened? What did he say? She was like, oh, he just said, don't ever hook me up with a black girl again because black girls are ghetto.
What?
Oh. Excuse me? Excuse me? So I just, after that, like, I didn't even want an explanation from him. I had already, after he left the movies, I'd already cut communication with him anyway, because I just felt like it was just a waste of time. So believe it or not, I had actually seen him again, but it was not because I was interested in him. Again, we shared a mutual friend and there was a get together, and he just so happened to be there, and he actually at the time brought another girl who was white to the get together, and child, I dodged a major bullet. But that is basically my story time. Of course, there was a lot of red flags that I should have seen in the beginning that I didn't pay attention to, and I know better now not to, number one, if I'm gonna be texting you for 2 weeks, I need to be either FaceTiming you, or I need to see more pictures of you. I need to know your preferences before I put myself in a position to where it could affect my mental health or my self-esteem. Some questions need to be asked. So that is my story time of how I ended up going on a date with a guy who was pretty much a racist and a POS. But it's okay, because you live and you learn. So if you guys have ever dealt with a similar situation, please let me know in the comment section below, because I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. So thank you so much for tuning in, sticking it out, and thugging it out with me. I will see you guys in my next video, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.